Professor Ólafur Rastrick has his experience as a researcher and professor in cultural studies. I was very happy when I heard his title of the presentation on cultural heritage, and I think this is a very useful tool for us historians as well, in order to use and to introduce in our methodology and the way of thinking history. So I think Professor Rastrick will have a presentation and then time for discussion at the end. Please feel free to ask questions, criticize, comment, whatever you feel like.
Thank you, Vladimir. I've never before been introduced as a professor, so that's pretty new. So I understood that Marco gave a brilliant lecture yesterday, but that's not what I'm going to do. I have sort of some very loose notes on this subject, cultural heritage, from the perspective of what we could call critical cultural heritage studies, which is an emerging disciplinary field, transdisciplinary, and it has its own society, the Association of Critical Heritage Studies, which was founded a couple of years ago, and its international conference, which attracts, there have been two, and one in Gothenburg and one in Canberra in Australia last December. And these conferences have attracted quite a number of people. I think there were something like 500 in Gothenburg 2 years ago. A bit fewer in Australia last December, because Australia is far away. And what I want to sort of run by you is the applicability of these sort of theoretical or general ideas about cultural heritage that has emerged from this sort of reassessment of the idea. So what I want to do here is just to sort of draft out a few aspects of this rethinking of what cultural heritage is, and especially how it is used. And as I see it, it's a disciplinary area that has until quite recently been a quite technical area. It has been about how to conserve, how to preserve heritage. Technically, much less about what heritage is and how it has been established and why we have established something called cultural heritage. So this emerging field, which can be traced maybe to the late 1980s, I suppose, has sort of from disciplines like archaeology, anthropology, ethnology to some extent, and history, has sought to sort of readdress this area from the academia and sort of salvage, maybe you can say that, salvage cultural heritage from the administrative and the conservationist perspective. So that's sort of what I'm talking about. I'll talk a bit about UNESCO's UNESCO's role in this development. UNESCO has been a leading body internationally in this area from very beginning, and in the last 40 years, from 1972 through the Convention of the safeguarding of cultural heritage. And I'll talk a bit about that, because the development in this area has been related to what has been happening on UNESCO base. So, why are we talking about cultural heritage in this perspective here? That's because in Lavinia's original promise, in the proposal for this project, there is specific reference to cultural heritage. And this is from the introduction of the project proposal. So this is what we intended to do. So I think maybe it would be a good idea to sort of try to develop some common ground for us to discuss this phenomenon. In the proposal, I think this is about the whole that we set down. So there's no sort of nothing more in the project description of what we're going to do. So that remains open. But only from these couple of sentences here, we can see that there's a number of aspects that we could address, and they're both sort of academic endeavors, and they refer to a political agenda. You see here the last sentence here. The role of traditions in the present and explore how reference to old ways has implication for the role of people's status in the present, and how collectives should capitalize economically, etc., on their cultural heritage in order to strengthen capacity for human rights development. And this is directly from the guidelines, this sentence, and as in these European programs, there is a political agenda. So in our work here, there is built into the project a political agenda, whether we like it or not. And I think we can use this idea of cultural heritage as a way to address this in a sort of a relatively sophisticated academic way, but also something that can be useful for different Roman communities. So that's maybe sort of a dual mechanism of this project. Can serve, can be useful for us as an academic endeavor, and it can also contribute to the political agenda. That is the agenda of the people with money and the agenda of the individual communities. So, if we start by trying to answer the question, what is cultural heritage? We can also start with the question, how cultural heritage is used. I'm sorry about the pictures are from Iceland. it's used socially by communities that consider them or are considered to possess cultural heritage. Alright? You should stop me when you want to pose questions. Don't be afraid, I won't reply. Social aspects refer to things like how cultural heritage is used to enhance social cohesion. So, if we are a community and we possess some cultural heritage, then we can consider that this is something we have in common. This is something that defines our roots. This is something that we can show people to see. Tells something about us as a community. So as a tool for the community, it could be, and is quite useful to have the refer to something that's cultural heritage. There are political aspects of cultural heritage. If you are seen to possess cultural heritage, that is a value. That's something that sort of lifts your standing in political field. This is an important community because it has cultural heritage. This is it. If we take Iceland, I'm sorry I have to make a few references to Icelandic history because I don't know so much about Romania. Iceland has Iceland's history is recent history, or history in the last 200 years, is dominated by the so-called quest for independence from Danish realm. And that the reason why Iceland is independent can be contributed to cultural heritage. We have here the specialist on the issue, but never mind him. Iceland could refer to a golden age with medieval literature, and through that Iceland could gain its position as a nation, and subsequently as a nation state. To simplify things, but reference to a cultural heritage was important in the political battle struggle for independence. So cultural heritage has, in many ways, this is just an example, in many ways, political meaning. Cultural heritage can be of economic value. Just think of tourism. Tourism very often is based on the idea of cultural heritage. People travel around to come and have a look at cultural heritage. So it's important for a community that sort of wants to make a living from tourism to be able to define or be able to refer to something in their community as cultural heritage. It has other economic aspects, of course, but tourism is an example here. And of course, related to the social aspects, or perhaps all of these aspects, is a sense of self-identity, or identity politics of a community. Again, a community is somehow defined by reference to the past and by reference to cultural heritage in some way. So to enhance the esteem of a community or a group of individuals, cultural heritage is a useful tool to do this. I've shown an example from the, if some of you have had the chance to browse through the reading material I sent Lavinia earlier. I've shown examples from Australia and how the indigenous population in Australia has been able to capitalize on the idea of cultural heritage to strengthen their idea of self-worth in different communities. Cultural rights is another related concept, which is something that's a part of the United Nations treaties or mentioned from the very beginning. The very idea that people should be able to practice their culture and so on. Again, a reference to heritage in some sense. So the idea of human rights is closely related to cultural human rights and cultural rights are closely related, even though there are some very important discrepancies and differences between cultural rights and human rights. Human rights are of course based on universal rights of the individual, while cultural rights are based on difference. So that creates a tension between the two concepts. But in some ways they are in unity. So next slide is I've sort of drafted up. I don't think you can see this. Can you see this from the back? I can't see from my paper. These are just a few sort of everyday ideas about what cultural heritage is. So I'll just quickly run through them, and then maybe you could add some more or disagree with some of these. So, why is this so small? Something that has been passed from one generation to another. This is a common idea about cultural heritage. You take something from your ancestors or from your great-grandparents, and you mediate it to your children, grandchildren. You just a link in the chain of generations, and your role is simply just to hand it on. That's your primary role with cultural heritage. So the general idea goes. Something that is common for a particular group of inheritors. Exactly what I was referring to before. Cultural heritage is something that unifies, or is thought to unify a group of people. Something that defines a group of people and thus unifies. This is our roots. This is why we are a group, because we have a common heritage. And similarly, this is something that connects us to the past, past generations. Explains where we come from. And then we are getting closer to the UNESCO definition of culture, or the old UNESCO definition of cultural heritage. Something man-made that has universal value, unusual beauty, symbolic meaning, uniqueness, its old age, etc. When we think of cultural heritage, we think of something old, seems to be linked to the idea cultural heritage is something old. Think of this statue here in Florence. It's something old, it's something unique, it's something unusually beautiful, it's something unique. That's an important element. So when we think of cultural heritage in different communities, it's something unique, it's something that's only in that particular community. And then it can be like this, be so unique for mankind. So it's a unique thing usually, unique for the whole population of Earth. This question of value as well, something we attribute special value. Priceless. So, this is a workshop, so you might chip in with some more ideas about what cultural heritage is. Marco, what do you think is
No, I was just thinking about how the uniqueness of the value is constructed as also as a universal. I mean, since you were talking about the political agenda and so on, there is a passage between a group who constructs the uniqueness of I don't know, maybe a statue, the chances of the passed from generation to generation. And this is the first step. And then I was thinking about how you construct the uniqueness which is recognized also outside, which is a further step and probably connects somehow also to the political agenda of this project.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens. And if you're thinking about UNESCO and the World Heritage List, which is the official list of 1,007 items that are the cultural heritage of mankind. And how is that list made up? Who makes it up? Who defines the values that go into making that? We'll come to that.
I mean, to illustrate the points, you could compare Coca-Cola to that statue.
Yes.
Coca-Cola as a cultural heritage. Which would not be classified as cultural heritage. It's probably not one of these 1,007 items on the list. And why not? Because it's not unique in the sense that it's not unique for one community. I mean, it's American, but it's taken from the world, it's consumed from the world. It's not seen as something, priceless and really cheap. So, but it's a cultural production.
Absolutely. But it's the opposite of cultural heritage because it's exists in so many examples. Like this bottle, you can't define this bottle as cultural heritage because you can find it all over Romania at least. You can only find one authentic statue like this. Maybe there's an authentic water bottle from Gorna. I don't know. Alright, back to Iceland now, and the manuscripts. The Icelandic manuscripts, these are these medieval manuscripts that sort of, in some way, define Iceland as a nation. This quotation here is taken from an Icelandic newspaper, and it's actually written by a former professor at the University of Iceland in president of your office, Jon Friðjónsson. And he's describing the value of these manuscripts. And if you have a look at or what he says here, sort of reflects exactly what's on the former slide. The value of our medieval literature cannot be priced. It's priceless. The most important possession. So manuscripts are our priceless possession. It comes with great responsibility to receive such values. Treasures which each generation after another has savoured and passed on to the descendants. This is something we mediate from our forefathers to our children, without changing the cultural heritage. It's the same. We are not allowed to make any alteration to the manuscripts. Like he says here, till this moment it has been considered obvious to pass these treasures unspoiled to the next generation. We shouldn't make corrections in the manuscripts. We shouldn't make any additions. The only thing we can do is to increase understanding. So we are allowed to make some research into these manuscripts. We're not allowed to change them. All right? So these manuscripts were actually kept in Copenhagen for centuries, and only returned to Iceland in the 1970s and 1980s. This was a very important event when the first manuscripts arrived. As you see here, this was well, you can see, you can't understand what this stands for. This is the Danish fleet brought the first two manuscripts, especially, and there was great celebration. Schools had the day off. Yes, the first direct broadcasting on national television was from this event. So this was in 1971. This was a great event in Icelandic history. And as you can see, this is a national event, and it's the nation state that sort of has to do with this. These are the representatives of the nation state here handing formally over the flower brood, as it's called in Danish, the important manuscript. Thinking about heritage, we think about something old. These books are old, so from the late medieval times. But this interest in heritage is something quite new. People generally were not especially interested in it. Well, the actual word cultural heritage is quite new. So some of the literature that has emerged in the last 25 years or so has illustrated that this is a part of modernity. This is something that happens in these days, nowadays. This quotation here is from the geographer David Lowenfeld's book, The doing here, because from the very beginning of the book, he sort of compares the modern interest in heritage to a cult. This is a new cult, popular faith, the cult of heritage. And to some extent he is on the right track here, because there has been, and it's still accelerating, it's still growing. If you think about all these newly constructed museums, since the Second World War, and especially since the 1970s, museums that sort of do this, present cultural heritage, that have mushroomed all over the world, in all corners of the world. And you have, every year you have thousands, literally thousands of new exhibitions of museums that somehow are presenting some old stuff as cultural heritage. And this, of course, has also to do with the tourism industry. Communities trying to constitute their distinctiveness by presenting, we have this unique culture, we have this unique cultural heritage, and we are showing it, we are making it available to you, come and visit us. So it links into that sort of industry. But it's also sort of takes on this cult-like appearance. It's like a religious thing. We sort of this in relation to the creation of the strengthening of self-identity and social cohesion and all that. This is who we are. We can go to this museum, we can constitute what we are. And no longer are they only national museums, but they are regional museums and city museums, that sort of, and specialist museums that sort of join on to that minibus. And that this has happened at the same time as this is at the same time as the concept has widened out. 50 years ago or 100 years ago, if somebody talked about cultural heritage, it was a fairly narrow concept. And I think the slide I showed you before with the quotation about the Icelandic manuscript is a fairly old-fashioned way to look at cultural heritage. It's the national treasures. But these days everything can be I can't pronounce this word, heritized. Heritization is something that can occur to all sorts of objects. Everything, or maybe not the notable, but lots of things can be sort of presented as something unique, distinctive for a community, unique for a particular population. All sorts of other things. Originally, object or monuments, as we'll see in a bit when we look at UNESCO. But the variety of other sorts of cultural practices have been included. Food, for instance, that's a fairly idea that food is somehow cultural heritage. But now, everywhere around the world you go to have a look at food as cultural, local heritage. Even in multicultural communities like Singapore, you have the different dishes, national dishes from Malaysia, from China and from India. But they're all symbolic of cultural heritage that they represent. All buildings, of course, people telling stories. That's a fairly recent idea that people telling stories is a cultural heritage. But in Iceland now, people telling stories, that's obviously a local cultural heritage that's being presented. Etc. Even in smells, I think, being characterized as heritage. So, this is cultural heritage is a relatively new concept in conceptualization that has been broadening last decade. It's strange because it refers to something ancient, something old. It always has something to do with something old. So there's a dynamism between this new and old. Another element that's important is that it is always charged with a sense of disappearance, or distortion, or demolition, or destruction. Cultural heritage is something that's being threatened by something.
Yes, the question is, cultural heritage is a medium, well, what I understand, cultural heritage is more like a dynamic medium, is in the same time conservative and dynamic and expanding. So basically he is trying to conserve something that is already expanding.
Yeah.
So
and it's changing.
Yes, but this change is not destruction.
Well, the threat of destruction is always there. Usually there.
For example, while doing the interview, we encountered these stories of how Roma specialized in brick building started to lose their craft. So is this can be considered cultural heritage as a craft which is on the way to disappear and need to be saved or preserved?
Exactly.
And it will bring, like, empower the community through this preserving.
Yeah.
And are there solutions for this community who doesn't have any political power to preserve the craft? Because when all people will die in the community, the craft itself will die.
And the empowerment must go through this channel to sort of conserve it.
Yes.
And try to conserve it as cultural heritage, because otherwise it will disappear. So that's the threat. But it's already, when this thought occurs, it's already dead in a sense, because it's no longer a part of the daily life of the people. So in order to become cultural heritage, it has already to be distanced from the community, a part of the past.
I think a very interesting example of this, there was an interview with the last speaker of native Canadian language. So there was only one person in the world who could speak this language anymore. And when he dies, I mean, it goes, really, I mean, unless he's able to somehow preserve it. So there is this kind of sense of loss, of losing the cultural heritage. But the thing is, I mean, who inherits what? I mean, whose country is it? I mean, if he is the only speaker from all down the gun, then there's no one to inherit it anyway. So it's...
Well, there only needs to be somebody that claims to be interested in it and claims to make some linkage to that. I have one example of this. If you manage to read the article by Rastrick, that was in the reading material. In the beginning of the article, he discusses this event here in 2007 when an important street corner in Reykjavik burned down. And this was a spectacle in Iceland, because national television broadcasted directly from the fire, and there were interviews with people, there were interviews with historians, or a particular historian who always seems to be there when something burns down. And this is a question that the TV representative, TV person asked the historian. Are we witnessing the destruction of invaluable cultural heritage? And so it's only when these buildings have caught fire that this becomes a sensible question, because before these were just ordinary buildings in the city, with some this was one of the oldest buildings in the city, but there was a sleazy bar called Pravda there.
A kebab house also.
The kebab house was on the corner here. But when the fire, the threat is real, the place is burning down, then people start talking about this as cultural. This is just the cultural heritage, our cultural heritage that is going up in flame. And this actually this story about this incident is quite interesting, because while the fire was still going, the buildings were really placed within discourse about cultural heritage, and everybody became very interested in salvaging this heritage, even if after the houses had burned down. And symbolically, this guy here was the mayor of Reykjavik at the time, and he is there on the venue, dressed up as a fireman to contribute to salvaging these buildings. And he's interviewed by the media, and before the last flames were put out, he had declared, sorry, this is only in Icelandic, but he had declared, we're going to rebuild these houses. We're not going to do something else. And he says here in the end, these buildings will continue to be here. They just burned down. But this is something that he's sort of ignoring that fact and saying we're just going to have these buildings there because they are so important. And of course that's what happened. These houses were built So this is what it looks like now. It looks like a museum, which of course it is now. Well, it looks like it's a fake, but but it's made properly to appear like it was in olden times. Here a quotation from Swedish ethnologist who stresses this point, that the idea of the looming doomsday is somehow always built into the idea of culture. And here we see another debate about buildings. I'll just try to translate what these headlines say. These are newspaper clippings from the city was going to tear down some old concert hall, and here we have a singer that is going to chain himself to the bulldozer to save the building. And this person here, a historian and popular novelist, says that what's happening there is terrorism. Tearing down these buildings is a terrorist act. And this is from a petition on Facebook. Here, Iceland is a small country, Reykjavik is a small city, and already a couple of days after this petition had started, 17,000 people had sort of joined in the quest to save this concert hall, because it was going to be teared down. Before this threat had appeared, nobody gave fiddlesticks about this concert hall, just the ugly house in the city. But when the threat is real, people say, "Oh, we're losing our concert hall," and this concert hall should be saved because it is cultural heritage. Some more example here. The Buddha statues in the Bamyan Valley in Afghanistan that the Taliban blew up. Actually, a reason why they blew that was because it had become a politically charged international affair. Some other heads of states have been saying, this is cultural heritage of mankind, and thus it became important for the Taliban to blow it up, because this was a statement. And only after that threat had appeared, people became, or heads of state became aware of the cultural importance these issues. And actually now we're approaching, I think, talk about the World Heritage List, UNESCO's World Heritage List. The start of that idea of having a World Heritage List, which is a list of World Heritage, a list of the most important objects, monuments in the world. It started with a threat. It started with the building of the great Aswan Dam in Egypt, and they had to move this temple because it was in the way of the Grand Dam in the Nile. So what prompted this World Heritage List was a threat to these monuments. Laws about Icelandic cultural heritage, which one of these laws were composed by him. They also stress this. This is the law about museums. It's the main law about museums in Iceland. This is the law about cultural heritage. They all stress this. It says here that the objective of the organisation of museum is to ensure that cultural heritage will be transmitted or mediated to the coming generations intact, unpolluted, undamaged. Exactly the same phrasing in this open law. So then we come to the issue of the antagonism between which Slovenia was hitting at before. You know, we need to keep cultural heritage intact for it to be cultural heritage. We need to freeze it because we are not allowed to change it in some way. Like the manuscript. We're not allowed to write some notes on the manuscripts. That will ruin them. So we can see cultural heritage here as frozen assets. We can't touch them, in a sense. But by doing this, by closing them up, by freezing them, we're sort of distancing them from our culture, if you like. They stop, in a way, they stop being a part of our culture. Because, at least if we understand culture as something living, a living phenomenon, something that's about change. And cultural heritage is of course about change, but we perceive cultural heritage as being not about change. So, Barbara Kistenblatt Gimblet, an American anthropologist, has talked about heritage as transvaluation. Transvaluation of the obsolete. Mistaking the album of the dead at the front. Into something else. So that's exactly what with the brick production. We have something that's outdated, making bricks. That's something that's no longer part of the community. But by sort of thinking about it, and by possessing it, by producing it as cultural heritage, it's sort of recycled into the community as something dead, of course, but as something very different from what it was. It's no longer a part of the everyday life of the community, but it's something that can be used in different ways. So you think that these nice buildings there. So heritage, you can read it. It's about changing perspective on things. And by this change of perspective, these things become symbols of themselves in a way. They become museum artifacts by being sort of pulled out of the everyday use. They're put on museum as display objects. Of course, the alternative might be that they just die and we never hear about them again. Right. Shall I continue? Or do you want a break?
Have a break between.
All right. Yeah. For 5 minutes. Reading. All right. Now I wanted to say something about the World Heritage List, so more about the World Heritage List, because I think that might be important here. The UNESCO is, as I may have said before, is the most important institution that it has concern for it. So as a international body, it's very important for definition and understanding of it. The World Heritage List is based on the Convention concerning the protection of the World Cultural and National Heritage, established in 1972, as I said before, and at present there are 107 sites on the list, increasing very rapidly. Every year there are more than the year before added to that list, and there's a tentative list now that is becoming longer by the minute. So we have this idea of unique cultural heritage that's being collected on this list, and it's always growing. And in the foreseeable future it will grow, endlessly. So in 50 years we might have 20,000 items on that list. So it becomes a bit sort of, so what's the purpose of that list if we have so many sites that have universal value for mankind? It's what happens in the basement of people's homes. There's always more and more stuff till you have to get a bigger house. Now this list is based on the sort of what I see as the older idea of cultural heritage. So it's primarily monuments and stuff like that. If you look at the first article of the convention, you see this. Monuments of outstanding universal value, groups of building outstanding universal value, sites of outstanding universal value. It's all about tangible stuff. Monuments, buildings, castles, things made of stuff that doesn't disappear. Stone is the best stuff to make cultural heritage if you follow this idea. Now these, if you can see this, these are spread out all over the world. The yellow dots are the cultural sites, the green are the natural sites, and those that are red, those that are green and yellow are mixed. So it's most of them are in the cultural cultural sectors, so there are 779 of the 1007 sites, so that's a fair majority. Other stats here. Transboundary, so there are 31 of these 1007 that are in 2 or more states. So most of these sites are in particular based within the boundaries of state, in 161 states. And that's perhaps, the reason is perhaps because it are the states that nominate items onto that list. And that links cultural heritage particularly to the nation state, because it's the state that has the power to declare this is cultural heritage that is worthy to be of universal value.
That was the other question I wanted to ask you. Is it cultural heritage more like a political construct for evaluating or expressing the existence of a nation, and in the same time constructing an identity? So I wanted to say, and UNESCO is just becoming something like a supranational political construct when it comes to cultural heritage.
Well, it's based on this idea at least of cultural heritage is based on the idea of the nation state, so it's a political construct in that sense. And it's all these items, I suppose, have some relation to the political creation of a nation. So the items chosen by the states are something that have direct relation to that political agenda of creating national cohesion, something like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I have a question. So we can say that cultural heritage can be a kind of transfer of identity.
Transfer of
identity from generation to generation.
yes.
But
And in this sense, transfer of national identity. Not
yes. But if it's a kind of transfer, how can be this unique?
How can be
This unique or original?
I understand.
It's asking if it becomes over national, does it lose its value as unique, as a particular monument, as a particular part of cultural heritage.
How does it go from being
Yes, from national to international.
to universal?
Yes.
Well, I see it as a mosaic. You know, the world leaders have agreed that the world is composed of different nations, and each state is allowed to nominate something into that this unifies the world population in humankind. This is about creating a group that's called humans. That's what the United Nations is about.
It's about communities.
Yeah. Other interesting numbers here are these two. In danger, 46. That relates to what I was talking about before, about definition of cultural heritage has always been linked to the possibility of destruction. The red dots are in danger. And only 2 of these 1,009 that have ever entered the list have been taken off the list. So that's pretty interesting. What has happened here, what goes into the the cellar, the basement, it doesn't come out again. What's been put on the list, it isn't taken off the list. Something very drastic has to happen for it to be removed off the list.
Could you tell us which are the two that lost their cultural heritage value?
One is a natural site. I'm not sure quite what happened there. It's somewhere in Arabia. The other is in Germany. They built a modern bridge over a historical site, or a historical area. It's not far from here. It will come back to me again. But it's sort of been polluted by progress.
So if site is entered on the list, there are responsibilities that come with it. And if the nation is taking care of that unique site, doesn't fulfill these responsibilities, they can go. And this has been discussed. There's one place in Iceland on the list called Þingvellir, and it has been discussed that maybe if the government doesn't do certain kind of things, then it will be taken out of the list. So it becomes an internal debate of preserving. And I should say that there are 46 in danger and only 2 have ever died. That means that maybe they are not in such a great danger, or it means that because they went on the list, they were taken, in a sense, out of danger. Because they were threatened, and by being on the list, that threat is kind of alleviated, because then the governments try to, it's a loss of honor to be taken out.
And even the area in Afghanistan, in the Bamiyan Valley, that's on the danger list. It only entered the list after the statues have been blown up by the Taliban.
What 2 months they tried to blow up?
Huh?
2 months it took the Taliban to blow up the statues.
Yeah, well, they had made some attempts before.
Yes.
They were thinking about it for years before they actually did. From this image here is the heritage sites seem to be sort of relatively distributed around the world. There's not much in this area, not much in Greenland. But apart from that, it sort of seems to be distributed around the world. If we look closer, however, we see that quite a lot of these sites, especially the cultural sites, are in Europe.
And Middle East.
And down here, of course, yeah.
With your Christian.
It's the people who built monuments from stone. And what comes out of this is that you begin to wonder about Italy, for instance, which is the state that has most sites on the World Heritage List, 50 sites. And you think, okay, 50 sites in Italy, with a population of, what, 50, 60 million. You think about Nigeria in Africa, triple that size, population, only 2 sites on the World Heritage. So, you can either say, okay, Italy has 25 times more culture than Nigeria, or you can say there's some bias in the World Heritage List. And that's actually what the UNESCO discovered and decided was the case. But you can't change this. It has been impossible to change the World Heritage List to sort of account for that bias. So we still have this World Heritage List, and it's always growing bigger. And the sites in Europe are increasing more than everywhere.
I was wondering in which that are now in the British Museum.
Exactly. I don't think they have a you know, a joint application.
I mean, this was actually debated in the debate about every month or the month. Some of the museum curators in Copenhagen said that the museum was a cultural heritage. So to take these pieces and send them back to Iceland was destroying cultural heritage. So you could say that British Museum is a cultural heritage with all the stolen objects, stolen from various colonies, but also from Greece and other places. So what is the cultural heritage? Is it the collection of the stolen objects or the objects themselves?
And of course, who has the power and ability to define what cultural heritage is about? Who has the sort of ability to apply it and will to apply it for international recognition of possessing?
And then you also come to heritage and to refer to something, some group inherits something from their ancestors, right? So the ancient marbles were made by Athenians, they were not made by Greeks. I mean, the Greeks so coming from Thessaloniki, there is nothing there.
Well, that's a very important question. Who are the inheritors? How do you prove that you are the inheritor of a dead language, for instance, or the ancient marbles? These are the items from Romania, as you probably know. 7 items, 6 cultural items. I don't know anything about them, but I found that these 7 villages have been inscribed on the list. This Gothic building here is part of that inscription.
That's a German heritage.
But importantly, it's made of stone. So that's the defining criteria for this inscription. It doesn't pollute so easily. It's old and it's been kept intact for a long time. So that's the idea of the concept, the old conceptualization of heritage, that it's been kept intact for some time, even though it may not be true, but the idea is that they're all the same. These are the which I'll just go to this example here. This is something that the Japanese were interested in adding on to the World Heritage List at one stage, and this example was important for the alteration at UNESCO in the early 15 years ago. These are shrines that have been there on this particular site for something like for centuries, at least since the 1300s, I think even longer than that. But the problem with this on the World Heritage List is that every 20 years they built a new shrine and tear down the old one. So the shrines are built in identical manner through the centuries, with the same kind of tools, etc., and the same ceremonies used for the transformation. But the buildings themselves are new, and material is new, and you know, it's made of wood, so it needs to be renewed every now and again. So UNESCO said, no, this doesn't stand our criteria for World Heritage. You can't have this on the World Heritage. It isn't old. It's always new.
The same question comes to Timbuktu, which is a dirt-built city and is renewed almost yearly after centuries and centuries, because it's always crumbling. So every time there are these people who are doing nothing but rebuilding it with dirt all the time, and it is part of the UNESCO heritage.
We have the same thing in Iceland. You know, for centuries, Icelanders used to live in mud huts or holes in the ground, as foreigners describe it, which need to be rebuilt all the time because they disintegrate. So Icelanders would really like the turf house tradition to be included on that particular list, but that's quite difficult because these houses, well, they've more or less all disappeared now, but a few are left, but they're always being, they need always to be rebuilt. That's of course lots of dwelling places around the world are like that. They're not made of stones, they're made of some material that needs to be So the question about this bias is, in fact, this question is cultural heritage, something that's European or Western. This example here from Lowenthal book sort of described it. It describes the sort of clash between the scientific academic thinking about human remains as museum exhibits and scientific sources that needs to be conserved for prosperity, so we can analyze them and create knowledge about ancient people, etc. And the people who claim, whether they're right or not, claim to be ancestors of these people that are the human remains in the museum. So well, the conclusion was that the Native Americans got some of their ancestral remains to rebury, that is, to destroy the remains from a scientific perspective by burying the bones that they are destroyed. They are used as a scientific research material. But this seems sort of in the vocabulary of Lowenthal, it sort of illustrates that cultural heritage is a religion of the Western people. So moving on to a more sort of modern and understanding that's been addressed by these critical heritage studies. You can talk about that this what's happening, what has been happening in bodies like UNESCO and the World Heritage List, is that heritage is not a religion but a discourse, a particular discourse. So this citation here is from Lord James Smith, an Australian archaeologist and cultural heritage specialist that has been instrumental in developing this area of study, this critical heritage study. And she talks about authorized heritage discourse, so the westernized or biased or whatever we call these kinds of ideas that the foundation for the heritage are something that's has to do with power. It's a discourse that's created through power. And of course, what has happened, practically since the convention from 1972 is that the nations outside Europe have been trying to, or arguing that we need an alternative understanding of cultural heritage, so that these states that don't have monuments made of stone can join in and have their own lists and sort of make use of the prestige and political effects and economic value of cultural heritage. So we have for instance, convention from 2003 for the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. So that's sort of a new word for basically traditions. So it's traditional dance, traditional theatre, all sorts of things, and that sort of relates into what I was talking about before, about the widening of the concept of cultural heritage. And this list, they didn't make the same mistake as in 72 in making this list is a representative list, not a total list as the other heritage list is. So we have different kinds of intangible cultural heritage that is representative. So there are actually examples of heritage from around the world. But you know, what happens is, in fact, that these new lists, they are just incorporated into the wider discourse of authorized heritage, and the discourse is just wide. It's not about creating a different notion of heritage, but about widening the concept. So if you can have a look at this image here, these circles are supposed to represent the different discourses of that we saw from the citation from Lowenthal about the scientific discourse versus the indigenous discourse, and by sort of addressing these clashes between, or these incongruence between these different discourses, we can reach some sort of agreement. In North America, they have this law in 1990 about repatriation of human remains. But what often happens in such instances is that the more powerful discourse, which is of course our discourse, the heats up the alternative, sort of includes it in the system. So we have some ways to include this burial thing in our understanding of refugees, so we need to compensate somehow for the indigenous population. So I was thinking, you know, if we could somehow think about the Romani communities as somehow being, in a way, indigenous, because they have some different understandings of value. There is some different worldview that sort of isn't applicable necessarily to our scientific understanding. I'll finish shortly. I'll just show you here what I mean by alternative. This is a similar example as the indigenous bones in America. It's about some indigenous Australians repainting ancient stone images. So this is in the 1980s, and there were some ancient stone drawings, 10,000 years old or something, and some young indigenous Australians in Western Australia went out and bought some tar paint in the next supermarket and went out into the desert and repainted the ancient drawings. So what's going on there? They're of course from scientific, the conservation perspective, of course, destroying these invaluable drawings. But from their perspective, perhaps, they were reclaiming them and bringing them back into living culture. They were doing something to them. So we have here a sort of a clash between performing heritage and the value of authenticity that is proclaimed by the Ólafur Rastrick discourse. So what has been happening in this area of physical heritage studies is a movement to sort of deal with heritage somehow as a way to sort of understand heritage in different ways, not just as something that's made of stone and doesn't change over time, but somehow addressing what happens in between the agency of a community or an individual and the actual tangible artifacts. So this picture is from Babeş-Bolyai, which is the site we mentioned in Iceland. That's on the World Heritage list. It's an interesting place because there are no buildings there, but it's a cultural site none the same, because it has a very important meaning in modern history for the Icelandic population, as a site of remembrance, as a route to Mamiara, as somebody called it a few years ago. It's the site of the medieval parliament. But if we think about this place, it wouldn't be much if we left out the performative aspect of how modern Icelanders perform their nationality or their cultural heritage by going to that place and doing something. So, so this is here from David Harvey, an article written in 2001, which is an important article and sort of directs this discourse into the direction of the performative or the practice. He talks about cultural tools, very important here. These are, for instance, Icelandic women that attended the 50th anniversary of the Icelandic Republic in 1994. And this event, the large section of going to things that they were trying to get there, some of the people didn't get it because of the traffic, but the importance of going there, or trying to go there, maybe that's what cultural heritage is about remembering, about performing, about doing cultural heritage. Of course the place is important, and the tangible aspect is important, but it's the meaning and the symbolic value that is given to the tangible through the intangible that sort of creates cultivations, and that's what these scholars have been trying to get at. I think if some of you had the chance to read the chapter from Lord Smith's book, Smith's book, it begins with a story. She travelled. She was doing some research in northern Australia, in this national park called Cluj-Napoca or something like that. And she had taken some indigenous women. They were flown there from Brisbane, where they lived. And this is the site of their original site of their community, the Wanshi community, where they have been brought up, but they have moved away. So what happened there is that Smith and her fellow scientists were trying to make the ladies, take them to the important sacred sites. Where are the sacred sites? We're going to map them. We're going to document what this is about. And the women started just to go fishing, and they weren't interested in what the scientists were trying to do. They wanted to go fishing and do something that sort of seemed, from the scientific perspective, as totally irrelevant for their endeavor.